on.
size.
I have it open intentionally. It's for dramatic effect.
Oh, God. Sorry. Test.
Yep, we can hear ourselves.
All right, today is Tuesday, September 23rd, 2025. This is a School District of Menominee Falls Board of Education Personnel, Finance, and Auxiliary Services Committee meeting. There is a possibility that a quorum of the full membership of the Board of Education may be in attendance at board committee meetings. There will be no full board action taken at any board committee meeting. Only members of the committee may vote on any items on the agenda. A live broadcast will be streamed on the school district's YouTube page. To watch the recorded meeting, please visit the School District of Menominee Falls YouTube site immediately following this meeting. We are located in the Village Hall Upper Conference Room, 3345 and 3344, located at W156 and 8480 Pilgrim Road. And the time is 7:10. I'd like to call this meeting to order. And I see the meeting was properly posted according to open record laws. And right now I just need a motion to approve the minutes from the August 18th Personnel, Finance, Auxiliary Services Committee meeting. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, you got a motion?
And second?
You got a second? All right, all in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, minutes pass unanimously. All right, so our first and only discussion item is the district office relocation.
So attached on board docs and also in front of you are two documents that we have seen before, but as a refresher on kind of why we're talking about this, we currently rent our district office space within the Village Hall. Our lease goes through 2029, the fiscal year, and in this building also is the village, the assessor's office, and the police department. The police department is expanding, and in their plans, they are utilizing the square footage that currently is the home of the district office. So we went through a thorough investigation, exploration process of the options that we have for wherever the future home of our district office would be. We looked at various leasing options, we looked at even buying commercial spaces with a realtor and what that would look like. After looking at all of the spaces that we own, we identified Ben Franklin Elementary as the building that we own that has the most available square footage that would fit actually our district office without disrupting any classroom spaces, existing classrooms. So when we kind of reviewed all of our options side by side, moving into one of our existing buildings for many reasons is our most financially sound option for our district office relocation. I think it goes without saying too that the location of being at one of our actual buildings, being very close to almost half of our entire school population at that location and the high school being next door creates a lot of efficiencies for many different reasons. So looking at Ben Franklin as our future home of our district office. Moving into the next attachment or the document that's in front of you is the just very high level version of the floor plan. When we are looking at Ben Franklin, this is the back side. So the front is the complete opposite side. This back is where the softball field is. The playground is, oh gosh, I'm not good with directions. At the bottom of the page, to the left and the bottom of the page, whatever direction that would be. And so again, there are no classroom spaces that would be disrupted in this. The current space that this shaded gray version is showing is really the old locker rooms that are back there with old bathrooms. There's a kitchenette area that's unused, a bunch of storage that actually is home to old curriculum materials. So school district employees have been going through that and finding some hidden gems in there as we work to clean out these spaces.
Yeah, it's the old locker room facility when Ben Franklin used to be a middle school. So when this was a middle school, and which is why the gym is so big for a lower elementary, it wasn't constructed as a lower elementary. So this is an old middle school and that is the old locker room space.
This is the same version that we saw the last time we talked about this, a couple weeks ago. We will bring with VJS, our construction partners, and EUA, our architects. They'll come to our next finance committee meeting and present the detailed floor plan and the detailed budget. So tonight we're going to go through our funding plan recommendation with really a draft scenario, a couple scenarios to show what these funding plans would do for us in terms of our fund balance and our tax levy and our mill rate. And know that the numbers that we're looking at are not real numbers, they're just for the purpose of a scenario. We'll talk real numbers at our next meeting. They're still working on that as they finalize the floor plan. So again, no changes from the last time we talked. We kind of stop at the music room on the top side, and we kind of stop at the gym storage on the second half, the lower half of that like draft of a district office.
But we do know real numbers, so if we were to lease a space over 10 years, starting next year, it would be $2 million over 10 years. We do know that, because that's what the professionals that we've worked with, we know that it's 1.3 million to purchase a similar space.
Commercial space.
Inside of it, obviously you could build for that, you know.
Yes, and
That number is on your sheet.
And building a space, or buying, if we purchased a commercial space, there is that number that you referenced is like our base number. We have to bring in fiber, which we already know is hundreds of thousands of dollars, probably our most expensive piece of moving anywhere, which is again one of the benefits of being at one of our district buildings is we don't have to touch our fiber. As part of our most recent referendum, we took on our own fiber, and that's great, we're not renting, but when there's road construction and we have to dig it up or dig it farther down into the ground, it's a six-figure expense, easy, every time.
Like within the last 12 months, we have about 150,000 of unbudgeted fiber expense just due to this project that DOT is doing out here in front of YMCA. Because we own our own fiber and we budgeted for whatever, 30,000, and they keep telling us, we gotta do this, we gotta do that, because we own our own fiber, we have to keep putting money into that. It's a real world example within the last 12 months of that type of expense.
So being at Ben Franklin is a huge kind of unforeseen and a little bit odd of benefit to us is that we don't have to touch our fiber, it already exists. Same with like utilities, plumbing, obviously, all that, there's Ben Franklin. So I'm gonna move into the next document that you have in front of you. This is the funding recommendation, and I do best with things written out. So I'm gonna read through the document that you have in front of you, because I think it's the best way that I can explain the recommendation that we're making in terms of funding. And then we'll go through the scenario document in front of you. So during the 6 years of 2018 through 2024, the district was able to provide a 0% increase in health insurance premiums for employees, while also being able to establish the health insurance reserve account due to those favorable years of health insurance experience. These funds that are in this health insurance reserve account are one-time funds that are similar to fund balance in that way and should not be used for ongoing costs. That's how you end up with a long-term problem, is using one-time funds for ongoing costs. So we know that. With districts that are self-funded, a common practice is, in the event of a positive year of health insurance, transferring that difference from the health insurance reserve account into a Fund 46 for capital projects. We created our Fund 46 for capital projects a year and a half ago. So we have 3.5 years of that 5-year timer. There's an initial 5-year timer where once you deposit your first dollar, you have to wait 5 years to use any money. You can keep putting money in there, but you can't touch it for 5 years. After the initial timer is off in Fund 46, you can take it and come and go as you please. So that's a one-time timer that was some political thing back in the day when Fund 46 was invented, not too long ago. So we are still in the initial 5-year timer of our Fund 46. But common practice for districts that are self-funded is if they have a good year, they'll transfer that difference from the health insurance reserves to their Fund 46, which helps them fund capital projects. And many districts in this area, many districts in this area have previously enacted that Fund 46 where their 5-year timer is up and they can put money in there and then use it right away. The recommendation is to do, in essence, a similar transfer, however, instead of transferring these funds from the health insurance reserve account, which is at $7 million, into Fund 46, because we still have 3.5 years left of that, we would transfer funds directly into Fund 10 and utilize them within the same fiscal year. And doing so, the in and the out in the same fiscal year reduces the use of fund balance and reduces or eliminates the swing of equalization aid and tax levies that comes with a giant expense. And this is because the equalization aid formula is very complex, even more so than the revenue limit formula. And there's 3 layers of equalization aid. We are at that 3rd level, we are negatively aided. So at some point, the more we spend, the less aid we receive. So with an expense of, and I'm gonna use, and these are not real numbers, but in the scenarios, you'll see a $4 million number for the purpose of showing what this expense does to our tax levy and to our mill rate. By having the in and out in the same year, meaning we would transfer the funds from our health insurance reserve account, and once they're out, they can be used for other things. So again, common practice is to use them for capital items. Districts use that transfer to Fund 46 because at that time, that's when that expense, the transfer, is counted toward the aid formula and not the use of funds from Fund 46. So essentially, it helps districts even out their expenses because oftentimes when you're talking about a capital project, they often are millions of dollars. So the Fund 46 is the way in which school districts manage their tax levies and, well, their aid, which then therefore impacts their tax levies and their mill rates, because we do know that costs that are fluctuate our aid.
Can you explain IBNR?
Yes,
Incurred but not recorded?
yes. So incurred but not recorded, IBNR, is a calculation that USI's team does each year, and our auditors they require us to get that number from USI. And that is generally the figure that auditors want to see in your health insurance reserve account. Generally, they don't allow it to grow much beyond that, and ours have, but at some point will force us to transfer money out because that account at $7 million is frankly too high. It needs to be moved into other areas, which is why school districts transfer it, some annually, into their Fund 46.
And so our auditors at some point will look at this and say, they'll talk about IBNR, incurred but not recorded, and say, we'll be required to make this move in the future.
So I see this as a proactive measure, and I do see this once our 5-year timer is up, as if we have good years of health insurance, which I hope we will one day again. I think we have some plans as we talk about. I do think it is common practice, and I think it's great practice to do this annually so that it kind of builds this reserve account in the years of good health insurance that we can use on other items, because those are funds that the district has put in to premiums that can then be moved to fund other projects. So I'm gonna go into the scenarios that are presented, but first I wanted to mention again, you'll see a $4 million number that is just a placeholder for the sake of being able to present a scenario. And then I wrote the figures simply presented in an effort to show the impact of the project on equalization aid, and then therefore our tax levy and our mill rate while we await final budget costs from BJS. Okay, questions before I go into scenarios? Okay. So your document is folded strategically, so if you can just look at this like small third.
It's very strategic.
It is, because well, I know that looking at a million numbers is confusing, so this is also in an effort to kind of simplify what we're looking at. So the first column you're seeing is the budget year, 25-26. And you're seeing revenues and expenditures and the budget surplus or deficit, which for us is a balanced budget for 25-26. Fund balance, the percent of fund balance of expenditures. You're seeing your Fund 39 debt levy, and then the total school-based tax levy. So the number that this rings a bell in my head every time, 39,206,306, because it has a nice ring to it, that's the number from the annual meeting. So Recall that is our tax levy that we've projected for 25-26, and I will say, we do use the word projected because we are still in our preliminary budget phase. In October is when we get all of our final budget factors and we approve our final budget and tax levy. So for now, 25-26 is still a projected budget, a projected tax levy and a projected mill rate. So that 39,206,306 and the $7 is what we are familiar with.
And that's why we schedule our October meeting later in October, because we have to be past the October 15th deadline,
Yes,
correct?
exactly. With some time to do the work of all the adjustments before the budget is approved.
Of the actual.
Next thing. So okay, and then the way that aid works, because this all comes down to how the cost of the the construction project affects our aid. The way aid works is aid is a year delayed. So expenses that we have in 25-26 affect 26-27's aid. So I want to look at next on the same third, the 26-27 fiscal year, and look at that school-based tax levy of 39,119,342 and the 691 mill rate. So a roughly flat tax levy with a slightly declining mill rate. So this is our status quo. This does not include any construction costs. This is our current budget. We obviously know that we have to put construction costs into our budget for our final budget. Okay, we're gonna open it up and look at scenario one, which is just the middle scenario. And scenario one, we've talked, this is only representing two different scenarios. We've talked lots of different things, David and I, over the last few months. One easy one to show that I'm gonna reflect here is the use of $4 million of fund balance. So you'll see in the 25-26 budget year, the first thing you'll notice is that $4 million red number, which means we are in the hole by 4 million, which simply means we are using fund balance. So expenditures exceed revenues by 4 million, so it's showing a $4 million deficit, which, would be, in the scenario, intentional for the use of the project.
Now, we have the funds to do that.
Mhm.
But
And you can see, and to that point, what happens with fund balance from the current scenario, the base scenario, to the next scenario. So we use $4 million of that 19 million. We're still sitting at a healthy percentage of just about 25%. Now look at the 26-27 fiscal year, the levy and the mill rate. So compared to the base scenario above, we're seeing our levy increase by about $1 million, which just means our aid has decreased by about $1 million. And then naturally, our mill rate also increases in that scenario. This is because we are negatively aided at the tertiary level for equalization aid. So
It just sounds like you've said that 100 times.
I know.
Reciting that.
Yes, by now you should know. Yes. So it is part of and the reason why some districts are negatively aided is because the whole formula is called the equalization aid formula. So it equalizes it equalizes in the whole state of Wisconsin the districts that are more property poor per member and more property rich per member, and therefore the districts that have more ability of the taxpayers to pay a higher amount of taxes. So we are on the side of it where we're more property rich per member, we have more property value per member than the state average, so we have to essentially get aid taken away when we have greater costs, which is why we're seeing our aid decrease when we have greater costs. So that's the why behind that scenario. If you look at the years going forward, and again, all of these are projected, but 27, 28, 28, 29, 29, 30, you'll see we go back to the same thing as the year before. So it's a 1-year adjustment in aid and our mill rate, and then we go back to kind of what it was. In the third, or does anyone have questions on that before I jump to the next one? So the bottom scenario is reflective of utilizing, in the scenario again, 4 million, I would say sort of a made up number. These are not real numbers yet for our construction costs. They will be less than $4 million.
yes, it's a fictional number for illustration purposes only.
Yes. This reflects using $4 million from a transfer from the health insurance reserve account. The goofy thing about the health insurance reserve account is it is simply a liability account. We would do an accounting transfer that's crediting an expense account, and then we also have a $4 million expense. So it's a little goofy, but you'll notice the revenues and expenditures in budget year 25-26 are exactly the same as they are in the base scenario. And at the same time, you'll look to 26-27 and see the school-based tax levy is actually the same exact number, and the mill rate is the same exact number as our current scenario.
So because we'd be moving money out of a liability account, which we would have to do anyway because of incurred but not recorded in the future, there's no change to our budget. And there's actually a decreasing mill rate in the second year.
So to me, it is a no-brainer, quite honestly, to utilize these funds that we have control of at this time before anybody tells us we have to move them. We have the ability to basically have an in and out in the same year. Again, the common example is that districts that are self-funded and have a good year, they move those funds to a Fund 46. We could absolutely do that, but then we can't touch them for 3.5 more years, and we have this impending project that we have to do this fiscal year. So we have the ability and the flexibility to make that transfer from our health insurance reserve account, which when those funds are in the account, if they're in the liability account, everything in that account is corresponding to health insurance. But we have the ability to do a transfer and move them out, which many districts do, and move into a Fund 46. We can move them into a Fund 10 account that is not a Fund 46 and have an in and out of $4 million in the same year, and that's why you're not seeing the levy or the essentially aid and then therefore the levy and then the change in 26-27.
I do wanna bring up a broader 30,000 foot point. Most don't know this, that Mrs. Wendler is actually presenting at a state presentation about the project that we are just completing at Sea and Rec and Riverside. And to her credit, she's very gifted in terms of these sorts of moves. You can see it in our current budget, you can see it in our projected budget, and in this as well. So I think that presentation is next week, correct?
Thursday.
Yeah, okay.
Great, congratulations.
Thank you.
In fact, I believe there was an article like a couple months ago, I don't remember but it wasn't, and then, you know, it was on Facebook and there were like 1 million comments and it was like, everybody was in awe about how, like, what was the article, what did we ranked, or we got the most amount of aid, like everybody else got
Yeah.
more aid and
Well, and it was it's like, I believe I wrote a one-pager on it, cause I do better when I can write it out. But there are lots of factors that go into that, and I would say, when we look at our tax levy graph and it's flat, there are a number of factors, like we can utilize our Fund 39 to avoid our roller coastering, which we have done, which, as we know from about a little over a year ago, allowed us to defease and save $3.3 million in essentially elimination of interest payments. So just having the ability, like, and I'm using here, you can even see on top, is the Baird budget forecast model. So this is what I love this is my baby, and it allows me to, and allows us as a district to look long-term. It allows us to not just look at our budget, but we're looking at the factors that our taxpayers are also interested, like our total tax levy and our mill rate and how our funds work together. So like when I look at the pie graph of what makes up our levy, Fund 10 isn't the only piece, and it's not the only piece that matters. It all works together. So I mean, this is like, I was excited to come tonight with this because this is fun to me and
Well, does this take into account, a related question, because it's really great work, does this take into account the $250,000 that the village owes us
no, it does not.
by Christmas?
It does not. And so that would be, and again, that's not in here. This is what was presented at the annual meeting.
Right,
The,
and that contract is by the new year. I believe the contract we signed with the village is that part of our agreement to terminating the lease and being good partners, and we want the police to have their new facility, is that they're gonna give us $250,000 to break the lease, which will get rolled into 10, right? Okay.
yep, so essentially, Fund 10 revenues, we can add 250,000 to that, and determine what happens with that. I mean, there's a number of other things that we need to look at as well.
Plus, we talked today at a construction meeting about rolling the contingency from Fund 10 from our current project into this project.
Exactly, from the Riverside portion of the
Yep.
city project building, so,
Yeah, I
again,
mean,
it's
I
like
could
how
just
everything
comment
works
that-
together.
Yeah, is that obviously, you know, when you have good people in charge and people who are, you know, looking out long-term and can see the long-term picture and how, I mean, this is all planning, this doesn't just happen by chance. This happens because you've got the right people doing things, so thank you very, very much.
You bet. I will say on that note, I can't create new money at the state level, so can't, with the T on the end. So we work our best within the constraints that we have within the revenue limit, and we just got done talking about health insurance, so it's a team effort.
They really could help us if they speed up the Fund 46 time clock,
Yeah, that would be.
which that could be a state decision that we'd be very happy with.
But we would literally be doing the same thing. If it was 46 versus 10,
Yes,
correct?
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
Absolutely.
we are doing the same
Yes.
thing, so.
we would just be
So
moving into.
speeding up the clock,
We would just be
again,
moving into
because we have
46.
somebody who knows what they're doing, so.
Absolutely. 100%.
And so again, what I was saying was that there were Facebook comments where
Oh, sure.
like other board members in other districts were just like, they could not believe how that could even be possible, that we were defeasing debt. Building, build construction on Riverside, building an addition and
Yeah, so that's what I'm presenting on this.
so.
Yep, Caitlin
Hopefully you
is
enlighten a lot of people.
she's actually presenting at WASBO with our architects and VJS, so the construction group, on actually exactly what you were just talking about defeasing, the defeasance and the savings of 3.3 million, how that rolled in to our community project, but also an expansion of an elementary school. I mean, all of that was done without incurring any debt. And this also does the same thing. Questions?
Ask about a much larger discussion that I'm not trying to go off on a complete tangent here. But just looking ahead at obviously the deficit in Fund 10 and the idea, now I understand it's not 4 million, but whatever it is I guess where I'm going here is like to spend several $1 million when you have this projected deficit, I could see that being a point of concern and it would be like, there's a bunch of red numbers coming up and you're just going to spend. And I understand we need places to work, we can't not do anything.
Yeah.
So I guess what's the rebuttal to that?
And Caitlin, if you're okay, I'll respond and you go right ahead. And now this is a forecasted deficit, it's not actual.
Sure, I understand.
So, and that's based on our 10-year SIP. But right now, if we took 4 million out of fund balance, we'd still have 25% fund balance, which is still very healthy. And we could cover through 28, almost, well, all of 27, 28. So 2 school years out, we would cover everything listed there. And still have money left over of the money that would lower us to 25%. So we would still have probably $1 million left of the 4 million we pull out of fund balance. Just based on the projections in front of you. If you look at the second scenario and just project the 4 million, I'm not saying we're gonna do that, but we have enough fund balance to, my initial answer to that question is, it's smarter for this project not to use fund balance, but we also have fund balance there to protect us in the short term if need be, but also to be available for short-term borrowing needs for multiple years. Now, do we have some work to do and the health insurance that we talked about enclosed and a lot of other moving pieces? We do, but I feel very confident with the budget for next year and actually the next couple of years. We have some work to do with respect to our needs, our 10-year capital needs, specifically at Valley View for certain, the drive up and drive out. We have some identified areas over there at Valley View, but also other things that are on the 10-year document that is public.
And that's kind of where I was going with that, there's all the, obviously the deferred stuff and I could see, again, just trying to I mean, genuine questions I have, but also just thinking again, community questions too about like,
Definitely.
you're gonna build this brand new space for administration, but then we have all these, this public plan with all this deferred maintenance.
Absolutely.
One of the big projects that out there is projected, and correct me if I'm wrong, on the 10-year project, isn't it projected as $1 million to redo the parking lot in front of the football field? That's one of the projects. So that's part of this list. We've known that and we've pushed it back, not because it's not a need, because it's not a short-term need. We can see it, we see the spidering and we've costed it out, but that's one item that is there that could be pushed back. We pushed other things to the front, which we, the HVAC system at the middle school, the roofs at the middle school, the high school, and VF. But I think we're making those right decisions and we have the fund balance to do both things. To protect us in the short term, for sure, for the 26-27 and for the 27-28. The math is actually right in front of you in the second scenario about the ability for our fund balance to be available if we need it. I'm not saying we will, because there's several other levers that we have been pulling that we'll continue to work on.
I will say too, on your piece about like, okay, we're gonna spend a couple $1 million and we've got all these other things going on. We're kind of between a rock and a hard place. So we're getting booted as of 6/30/26, which is why we did our thorough exploration process. So like when Mr. Munoz started saying in 10 years if we were renting we'd pay $2 million. Okay, so like let's say we did that, we paid $2 million over 10 years. Then what happens at 10 years? Now we have to find a permanent home or we do it again. But it kind of cuts that off, it's like stop the bleeding of the renting. And this building, the village has been an amazing partner. We are paying well below market rates. We're paying about $60,000 a year when all is said and done each year to be renting this building. So that's not as significant of a cost as $200,000 annually. So that provided us the ability to like have the flexibility to rent and then, find the right place for us. If we looked at purchasing a commercial space and outfitting it, we'd spend at least as much as this project, likely more, and it would certainly not be in an ideal location. And we have to add in that fiber piece, which is hundreds of thousands of dollars. I think there's something definitely to be said about being close to two of our larger buildings. Like staying in this little area where five minutes or less away from all of our schools for safety and security purposes, being able to get anywhere, I think that is just like an unspoken benefit to being able to have a school that we already own that has square footage that doesn't even disrupt classrooms. And on a piece that we haven't even talked about, we have land. Like we talked about it, but we didn't even include it in our document because it's certainly not the most financially sound option, but we could take land and we could build a district office on land that we already own. And we would be spending at least 3 times as much money as we're talking about just renovating. So, we've talked that through with our architects and with construction management partners and know that that's likely not what our community would be in support of. When we worked with Mr. Fitzgerald on what the PD plan is here, he presented a very similar thing and they actually started with the plan of like building a new police department, which was, I don't know the number, but I wanna say
significantly higher number.
Yeah.
In talking to Mr. Fitzgerald, part of that, and I meet with him monthly, that his plan for this facility is actually a tapered down plan that has to do with, actually, he's doing exactly what we're doing. He's looking at his existing facilities and trying to not just make do, but make things right for the police department and for the community for the long term. I believe we're doing the same thing while keeping the budget the same, keeping the mill rate the same, and then going down in the second year. And we have reserves still in place if need be. We have reserves if something like the chiller would come up again. We're well positioned to handle that if need be.
And I will say, not that it makes it a little bit better, but I'm used to reading these deficit numbers, so I have to remind myself that when I show them, it's very shocking. But they're compounding, so if we eliminated $1.4 million of ongoing costs, the next year is only the difference, the deficit is the difference, it's not an additional 2 million, does that make sense?
Yes.
So I think that helps, and I'm used to reading that, but thank you for asking the question, because
Yeah, it's a good question.
when you work to fix a year, it helps the next year, as long as you're not making a one-time cost.
Yeah, these numbers look a lot better than when I arrived 2 years ago with the, meaning the deficit is reducing, we're working on completing projects. Some of the things we're doing at Riverside, it has put us ahead of the game.
The
Are
state
we-
budget too, there's 2 state budgets that are unknown.
Sure.
So like, there's so much that could change in here. We had the increase in special ed funding that we've never had before
Yeah.
in the 25-26 year. And there's a, projected increase above that into 26-27. Honestly, I can't recall what I have built in as an assumption for 26-27 in terms of special ed funding. And I generally try to be conservative so that I'm not, overextending or cutting too much in here. So I would take the future years with a grain of salt, but do know that we have work to do. Like, this isn't just like we can
For sure.
status quo and do nothing and we have a balanced budget. And I am very interested to talk to you because you went to that session with the legislators on school funding. And like, school districts are in a really tough place right now and all the districts right now are being squeezed in the area of health insurance. So like, we spent so much time talking about what we can do to beat that, but we are all in that same boat and working to do what we can, to be proactive as much as possible to remove those costs. But I mean, we can't just do nothing and have balanced budgets. We have to work to make difficult decisions each year, which is why, so much of the stuff that we presented with salaries and the solving compression with our own retention savings and like creating those funds, like we've done a really good job, I'd say, in the last couple of years of creating our own internal savings because we know it's not gonna necessarily come from the state every year, every biennial budget, so.
And we still intend to continue to do that compression savings. The numbers on this sheet don't dissuade us from continuing to move forward with that compression work, correct?
Yes, I'm taking all that money for my purposes. I like to say like Caitlin can't touch my money, cause I consider that.
I guess my last question is right now, obviously the village is giving us $250,000,
Yes.
fantastic, but I don't know construction and remodel timelines, but like, this feels very compressed, so are we like, is that essentially like in and out because we're paying more to get the job done faster?
No, the job is a 3-month job,
Okay.
but they will finish and we will be moving like immediately.
Unlike the CE and rec
Well, that's no
Riverside,
construction.
this is just renovation.
Sure.
Yes.
I mean,
Like outside, maybe there'll be some window changes so that we have visibility for safety purposes to the entrances. But otherwise, the outside is still the same structure. And then I know they've been working hard inside here are like load bearing structural walls.
Yes,
Everything's being done possible to not have to do that, so
yes.
it's a very mindful project to do a renovation with in the least costly way possible
correct.
to still create the space. Like bathrooms are going in where there's already the plumbing ready to have a bathroom from the locker room, so
From the
things
old
are
locker room.
from the old locker room.
The kitchenette is where the kitchenette is.
It's gonna stay
Yes.
there.
Yeah, so like, it's a very purposeful renovation being done with what's already there to the absolute best of the ability. So that's why like, well, this office might look like this, which is a little weird, but those are load bearing walls, so that's the shape of your office. And so I do think it's been an extremely mindful project of getting the best bang for the buck without incurring what I would call aesthetics costs.
Yeah, like for example, my office and my executive assistant, we're not gonna have any natural light. Because it just doesn't work without punching holes where there aren't holes. So, and I'm like, okay, that's fine.
I mean, I will say too, like, that, if you ever go to Ben Franklin, now I'm paying way more attention to it than I ever did, but like the back where this area is, it's lower, like the ceiling is lower we're not raising the ceiling, it's just gonna be the ceiling. The architects and construction folks are doing what they can to, like, you know, I don't know, get rid of this thing and like go up to the drop ceiling, that's what they call it. So, yeah, they're being mindful, but it's certainly not an excessive like project, and I agree, very mindful, the architects, both of them, like, I mean, we're in meetings all the time with them, and they're back and forth conversations about what we can do and what we can't do, or don't want to, or the confines that we're trying to stay within. I had another,
Also, Building Solutions, who helped us save over $600,000 in the last project, we're working with them again on this project. So they've proven themselves to be highly valuable to the district. And that's $651,000 to be exact, that we didn't have to pay out because we contracted with Building Solutions.
I will say too, like, there was a meeting where we, with Mr. Gofford from Ben Franklin, where there were a lot of spaces within Ben Franklin that were discussed, and even like the front rooms within Ben Franklin, if those could be conference rooms for both district office staff and Ben Franklin staff, and we scaled, like, we had this great brainstorming meeting, and we scaled it way back to like, I don't wanna say bare
To the
bones,
gray.
but to the gray, to the needs of the district office. So it's by no means a Taj Mahal, it is recreating our district office space in a new space that will be a great welcoming space, a good first impression for families coming into our building. We are planning they call it a canopy, but like an exterior facade thing that
Like a covered entrance way.
yes, that shows that this is the district office. There'll be signage, because when you come in right now, it certainly looks like the back of a building. So it will look more presentable than that, it will be a good first impression.
And we'll have all of that at the next meeting.
Yes.
So all of those things, including renderings, pictures, dollars and cents, the architects, and the construction folks. So after this meeting, everything forward, we'll have those people in front of you as well.
And we're taking our furniture, it's like I'm gonna figure out how to make that office fit in this office, you know, so, I mean, I think we are being as fiscally responsible as possible to have workstations inside a fairly structured space.
Any further questions? Alright. That brings us to the close of our meeting, actually see motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Alright, meeting is adjourned at 7:52.